Great. Well, hello, everybody. I see that we're live now, so great to have everybody here. We've got Judy here, which is fantastic, and we're almost done with your 3,000-mile walk across the United States from Pacific Ocean to Atlantic Ocean. Just incredible, such inspiration for everyone. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your walking to join us, Judy.
My pleasure. It's always a pleasure to speak with you and to be available for your audience and for everyone listening in. I love sharing my story. That's what this is all about. And I'm just delighted to say that I'm doing great. The walk is going well,
Yeah,
and I still feel terrific. So that's great.
and fantastic. And I know you're in Florida now. Where in Florida are you?
I am in Tallahassee. I'm on the eastern side. I've been walking all day today
Huh?
across Tallahassee and went across the Florida State University
Yeah,
campus, very pretty campus across that
yeah.
way. Passed by that a couple hours ago. And it's a little cloudy, but it's nice because it's cool weather and very easy to walk in. So I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, I mean, you were going across the southern United States in the middle of summer and managed to survive that. So very impressive. I'm glad you made it. Now we've got some cooler fall weather, which is nice. So fantastic. So now, are you still thinking that you're going to hit the Atlantic Ocean around November 15th? Is that still the plan?
It's still the plan. I'm targeted to be there. I don't see, of course, when you're walking, one never knows what could
Yeah,
happen, but
sure.
barring any drastic circumstance, I will easily make that on the 15th. And I
Great.
think I've figured out my daily pace, and the distance
Mhm.
is really less than 200 miles at this point. So
Wow.
I'm cruising. It's great. It's a great feeling. I mean,
And
today I
how
was
many
kind
miles
of
have you walked?
glam.
Have you hit?
Um, I have done almost 2,600 miles. Well, actually, today will be 2,600. I haven't added my
Yeah.
miles yet. I haven't totaled it.
Wow.
So 2,600 miles already. And, I originally did an estimate roughly coast to coast, and I came up with 3,000 miles. But when I really calculate the exact distance, it's going to be more like 2,800, which I'm happy with that. I mean, I think that's really great.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
pleased to do that.
I mean, it's just an incredible accomplishment to get all the way across the country. Wow. All right. And what sorts of sights are you seeing in Florida?
Well, of course, the usual, lots of palm trees, and I've become sort of, I mean, I don't like to mention it that much, but because I'm walking along the road, I get very familiar with all the little animals that try to cross the road. And
Yeah.
I know that armadillos are the most popular one, at least that I see in Florida.
Yeah.
And sadly, they don't move quite fast enough to get across the
Oh,
road. But
yeah.
I'm really hoping to see one alive in Florida. So I may have to go to a zoo for that. But they're really cute little things.
Yeah. No gators?
But the sights are, you know, gators. A couple also didn't make it across the road, but
Oh,
I did see one live in a young one sunning him or herself on a little rock in the water, and it was really cute. And it just sat there, and then as soon as I got close, I took a couple of photos, and I don't know, I guess it saw me or something, and then it went underneath and went in the water. But that was very exciting. What's really beautiful here, though, are the trees, the live oak trees with all the moss hanging down,
yeah.
and it's the beautiful gray and green moss, and it just is very dramatic, really
Yeah.
dramatic.
Yeah.
So and people have continued just to be really courteous and nice.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, and I don't think any of your listeners will be surprised at this, but almost everyone who I get a chance to tell, they say, "Why are you doing this?" And I explain why. And they will come up and immediately say, a gentleman today, earlier today said this, my grandmother passed away with Alzheimer's. And it's just like, I don't think I've talked to anyone who didn't volunteer, that somebody close to them. And it really just, it punctuates what we already know. But when you really come face to face with so many people that you haven't met yet, and they're sharing that with you, and want to hug you, and I mean, they want to hug me just because they feel so committed to what I'm doing, that I am spreading the word, that there are things you can do to reverse your symptoms. And it just, it's a really great feeling for me. I feel very rewarded for the suffering that I've had a little bit along the road. Not that it's been that bad, but it's not been easy. There've been some hard times. And I feel really rewarded by these comments that people make.
Yeah, it's true. It's just about everybody knows somebody, has someone in the family, have experienced themselves, whatever. It is very, very common. And, as we've talked about before, statistically, about 45 million of the currently living Americans will die of Alzheimer's. So to be able to reverse the cognitive decline is huge. And of course, when you and I first met back in April of 2012, you had already been diagnosed. You were having your own issues at the time. How has your cognition felt? I mean, you're really good at telling when things are good and when things are not so good. How have you felt walking across the country?
Well, it's actually amazing that I have been so sharp. My memory has been excellent. Uh, I would say better than ever before. And even something, when I'm walking, the sort of solitude of walking and the rhythm of walking on a road, I've had memories from my childhood come back to me,
Yeah,
conversations that I had with my parents. And of course, I know that a lot of people who start to experience memory issues and cognitive decline, the first thing they notice is the short-term memory. What did I
right,
have for breakfast this
right.
morning? Or, that kind of thing. And that, of course, is very, very good for me. I don't have any issues with that at all. But I thought it was interesting how the little subtleties of really very touching memories have come back to me. And I'm just so joyful about that.
Yeah. And I think it's great also that, you've ended things in your family with this generation. Obviously, this affected your mother and was starting to affect you years ago. And so it's great that, hopefully nobody further in your family, and your son or anybody in the subsequent generations will have a problem. It's interesting to me that to this day, the vast majority of physicians will deny that you can reverse cognitive decline, even though we're seeing it every day, even though we see it in our trial, even though we documented it in our previous trial, even though Dr. Heather Sanderson documented it in her trial again and again and again and again. And yet people will say, oh, I can't believe that. So definitely having proof, hard proof, improvements in MRIs, improvements in cognitive scoring, all these sorts of things are really taking a step forward. And I think it's great that you're out there spreading the word. So many people, it's going to save many, many lives where people think that nothing can be done, but in fact they can. And also spreading the word of get in early, don't wait.
Oh.
People will so often hear, oh, it's just normal aging. That always drives me crazy because normal aging, you should not be losing your memory. You should not be having problems that people do when they're developing Alzheimer's disease. So I think it's fantastic that you're out there spreading the word. So November 15th, it sounds like this is going to be somewhere in the St. Augustine area. Is that correct?
That's right. Heading for the beach there. The one thing that's great about the area is it's just beautiful beaches, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming right down the coast, but I know
Yeah.
from the Jacksonville area to the St. Augustine, the beaches are deep, sandy, beautiful beaches,
Beautiful.
and we're gonna end up out there with a celebration, and I'm really excited to do that. What my original idea was, you know, say hello to the Pacific Ocean, put my
Yeah,
feet
yeah,
in, and then greet the Atlantic Ocean. So that is the goal, and that's the completion
yeah.
of the walk, which is really going to be great.
Yeah,
Real
and the Atlantic should
excited.
be a little warmer. The Pacific tends to be a little colder than the Atlantic Ocean, so should be a little more comfortable for you. Now, a number of people have asked, is there a way to join you for this final part of the walk and walk with you? Are there people, are you having people join you in this latter part of the walk?
Well, yes, some people are going to. They're going to be meeting up toward the end. It's and a lot of people have offered, and a few people have actually come along with me. And I do welcome people coming to my arrival when I'm getting to the Atlantic Ocean and to the beach. It's not as practical as one might think to have a lot of people walking
Yeah,
across the road because
for sure.
it's usually one person at a time because you might have a narrow shoulder to walk on. I've had some idyllic roads where it's been through parks and areas where just beautiful, no cars and really lovely. But I think that the congestion through certainly on the east coast of Florida is going to make it a little bit challenging, but certainly the beach is wide and big, and it would be lovely to have people come and celebrate that with me. I would enjoy that very much.
Yeah, so it sounds like maybe reception better than promenade. Being out on the beach there and having as you're coming in, that might be the way to go. That's cool. All right,
Yep.
very
Yeah,
exciting. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
What an
And
accomplishment.
well, I think it's been literally one step at a time, and I'm in the process of adding up all my steps because every day I have a step counter, and I have two ways actually. One is on my phone, and one is a regular old-fashioned pedometer. And I'm going to total up the numbers. It's going to be astronomical steps, but I
Yes.
want to be able to
Wow.
share that number, so I have to do the final tally on that. But one thing I do want to say to your audience is, you mentioned before about a lot of the doctors, kind of disregard this, and they don't believe that a person can improve when they've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And of course, I'm proof of it. But one thing that I'm really working on, and a lot of people who are working with me and colleagues alongside me, is that we're really gathering the number of people who have done what I've done, and there are hundreds, and maybe even more than that. So we've
Yeah.
formed a foundation to get people to tell their story and do testimonials, and that's the Alzheimer's Survivors Foundation, which
Yeah.
is a not-for-profit, and it's really just to spread the word. That's the real purpose, is to say, hey, there are more. It's not an N of one. It's a
Right.
N of many, and I don't even know yet what that number is. But I truly believe that it's like any other great scientific advance in the world. People doubt it first. They doubted that even washing your hands, before you do surgery, was important to save lives. And all of those things in science have been proven. And I know for sure that we're going to get the message across, and people are going to realize that there are things you can do to really save your brain from being inflamed and not functioning anymore.
Right. So you're going to end up with something like 5.6 million steps. It's going to be somewhere just based on, what is the typical 5,000 step day that other people would have. So those mere mortals like myself who aren't going 2,800 miles. That's really cool. So you're going to end up with a huge number of steps. So, while you're doing this, what's interesting, even the armamentarium is growing. We have new things coming even as you're doing this. Our trial, I mean, the timing is great because the trial is going to finish on October 31st, and you're going to finish 2 weeks later. And the trial, we've got unprecedented improvements. It's the the greatest magnitude effect of any trial to date. So we really can say for the first time, there is truly an effective treatment for Alzheimer's, whether it's stage 1, 2, 3, or early into the dementia stage. And so very excited about that. The era is changing. Very exciting. And I just came back from a wonderful meeting from Dr. Jeffrey Bland, the PLMI meeting, which was down in Dana Point last week. And one of the interesting things that came out of there was a new way to look at inflammation. We tend to look at HSCRP. We tend to look at high ferritins, albumin to globulin ratio. But there's an interesting thing called SIRI, so SIRI, which is systemic inflammatory response index, SIRI. And the nice thing, it's easily calculable from if you simply have a complete blood count, a CBC, which pretty much everybody gets. It's a standard thing to get. And they calculate it as number of PMNs, that's your neutrophils times the number of monocytes. So that really represents the innate system divided by the number of lymphocytes. And so you can calculate that. Actually, you can look it up online. You can see if that is high, you probably have some inflammation. And a lot of times the HSCRP is not very sensitive at picking up inflammation. So here is another way to look, and probably a little more sensitive way to look at chronic inflammation, which is a contributor, as you know, to cognitive change. And so that we know if that's high, we really need to push harder looking for what's driving it, and also to bring it down with things like resolvins and omega-3s and pregnenolone and curcumin and the various anti-inflammatories that we all have access to. So things are continuing. There are new approaches, all sorts of new things. Then I think that's a very, very exciting to see. Okay, so you've made it across. I know you had one blister at the beginning. So let's look at the count here. You've not had any arthritis, which I'm so impressed. Your hips are okay. Your knees are okay. That is fantastic. Congratulations for that. You're clearly doing some things right. Thankfully you've stayed out of the road. Please continue to be safe there. Any other challenges? Now you've lost a little weight, but
I
how
have.
much weight have you lost?
I've actually lost about 10 to 15 pounds. I don't have a
Wow.
scale with me, but
Yeah,
I know just from my clothing, it's quite a lot. But I feel like I can pick that back up. You know, I didn't want to lose weight when I started, so it
right.
wasn't as I was trying. But it makes sense if you figure that I'm walking about 8 to 10 hours a day.
Yeah,
Less now because the days are shorter and I don't like to walk after dark
right.
because it's dangerous on the road. But so I'm walking a shorter day now, but I'm burning a lot of calories, even though I'm not running, I'm walking. And I'm
Mhm.
walking at, pretty good pace. I'm not trying to rush or anything, but I'm walking at a comfortable pace. I started the walk, I was on my normal diet, which was intermittent fasting, and but been a little different. I'm really having to eat more frequently now just to ingest enough calories, enough energy, to keep me going. And I also take some creatinine as well
Creatine.
to keep the muscles going, and my usual supplements that I would normally take.
Right, creatine, right? Not creatinine, but creatine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
Right.
misspoke. Yeah,
Creatine. Yeah.
creatine.
And
Yeah.
how much are you taking? Most people take anywhere from 5 grams to 20 grams. How much are you typically taking?
Well, I'm taking 10 grams.
10 grams.
And it varies. Sometimes I just will scoop it in, but it's definitely more. Five is like one measured scoopful, and I'm usually doing two at least, sometimes three. And I can tolerate that really nicely, no problem with it. And I think it's important from the muscle standpoint,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
No, I've been taking some creatine, typically 5 grams, and definitely it helps and definitely gives you additional energy. Really helpful. One thing for everyone to know, if you do take creatine, your creatinine, when you do your blood panel, will be higher. So
Mhm.
you need to know your kidney function, you need to check cystatin instead of creatinine, so that'll give you a much better look at where your kidneys are functioning.
Yeah,
So,
that's good
right,
to
but I think a
know.
lot of people are interested in creatine. It's been very helpful for energetics, very helpful for muscle building, all those sorts of things. So that's fantastic. And I know you had gotten a little bit of dehydration before. What are you doing in terms of keeping hydrated?
I'm just really trying to get myself to drink more often, and I am doing that. Since I had my test when I was midway in Austin, Texas, I had some blood work done, as you know, and I showed up being somewhat dehydrated.
Sugar. Yeah.
And now I'm just drinking, drinking, drinking. Obviously, that has disadvantages too when you're on the road, but
Yeah,
I think it's important that I stay hydrated. And I carry two big flasks with me, and I will frequently stop and top those up again. And
yeah,
I also take a rehydration powder by UCAN, one of my sponsors. It's a nice powder that has no sugar in it, and that's a very good for the electrolytes. So
yeah.
I will put that in my water. And I also add often lemon juice. I'll put some lemon juice in it. And when I was going through the desert and it was so hot, I put a little salt in it as well, salt and lemon juice, just because I was sweating so much. And that's not the case anymore as it's cooled off a bit,
Okay. I should
a
mention,
little bit
once we have
better.
a final location for your finish line, we'll let everybody know. So anyone who would like to join, they'll know exactly which beach to go to in the St. Augustine area, so they can join you if they want. So okay, that's fantastic. Let's see. Let me just pull up here and see if there are questions that we can respond to here. And let's pull this up. Okay. And here's one that says, welcome and many congratulations. Judy, have followed you for some time. Very proud of you, and congratulations to Dr. Bredesen. This would surely not be possible. Yes, we've been very interested in this for many, many diseases. So thank you. This is from Catherine, who's saying, congratulations. You really are an inspiration, no question. Geraldine's saying, what's your typical diet consisted of in a day while you're walking?
Well, that's a good question. I will start out, some days I'll start out with eggs, and other days I actually will eat some organic oatmeal with some nut butter added, some organic nut butter added in. Avocados, I'll add avocados, mix that up. Sometimes I have it on a gluten-free piece of bread and enjoy that. And I have these little, they call cuties. They're little tangerines or
Yeah,
tangelos.
yeah,
So
I know those. Yeah,
I start out every morning, one in each pocket. And I don't know, it just gives me something to do as I'm walking and peeling and eating them. And then I'll get another two when I come back in for my lunch meal, which I usually try to catch in the RV if I can, because I can control the quality of my food because I get food delivered by Trifecta, one of my sponsors, and I can have the meals that are already planned and prepared with organic vegetables, and that works out really well. So I've been depending on that quite a bit. And, to be perfectly honest, which I like to be, I have had, I think one time I just said, I really want a pizza tonight,
yeah,
And
yep,
so I went off the deep end and had two slices of pizza, but it was good and satisfied my sort of need to have something different. But I don't recommend that on a regular basis. But I think what it says is that it's not about perfection in this journey. It's really about doing the best you can every day and feeling like you can improve what you eat in your diet on a daily basis. And whether you're out walking or you're home in your own, in your own house, you're in control of it if you take control of it. And that's basically what I do. Nuts also and seeds. I mean, lots of good organic olive oil. I'm very liberal with use of olive oil. I'll put it even on the trifecta meals. When I heat them up, I just pour olive oil all over everything because I know it's so good for you, and I love the taste of it anyway.
yeah,
So I use a lot of olive oil.
yeah. I do the same. I really like that as well. And I think, it's been pointed out before, going in and out of ketosis, basically being metabolically flexible. So you're going in and out, and even getting off a ketogenic diet one day a week or even one twice a week, separated by a few days, can be helpful for many people and help them get back into ketosis more easily. So there's so much that can be done now, and even so many workarounds, even things like cauliflower pizzas. If you're really wanting a pizza, check out a cauliflower pizza. There's so many good things that you can do now. Just the armamentarium has grown by leaps and bounds. There's someone that's saying, how many cups a day Doesn't say cups of what. I'm assuming they mean water, or do they mean cups of vegetables or cups of what? But let's assume it's water. How many cups a day of water are you drinking?
That's a great question. I should be measuring it. I'm not actually, but I go by the number of times I fill up and I do it
Mhm.
frequently. So I've got 225, I've got 48 ounces that I start out with in the morning, and I'll take another 48 ounces about midday, and then in the afternoon I'll do another 48 ounces. So, it's what is that, three times that. It's more than I would drink normally at home, which I
Yeah,
usually get about 64 to 75 ounces of water a day.
yeah,
So, yeah, and it does depend on how much other liquid I drink as well. I'll have 1 cup of coffee in the morning. I am limited to 1 cup. I don't hardly ever would have two. I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning, and otherwise it's water.
yeah.
So.
Yeah. And then Pam is saying, where can I find out more about Judy's story? And Robin has responded with the judywalks.com. I should mention also, take a look at the first survivors of Alzheimer's, and Judy's story is prominently there, and she's written her own story, what was going on with her. I think it is really inspiring. I think to hear, and we hear these sorts of things, and you're now part of a group also there's a support group for people who've gone for years and years to continue to keep optimizing. And we continue to see people now, you've been 13 years, 13 and a half years now, and still doing very, very
Yeah,
well. So the question is whether we can continue that till you're 100. That's the goal. And then Robin,
absolutely.
yeah, she's saying, have you experienced any muscle cramping? And if so, how did you address it?
I'm surprised that I haven't had any muscle cramping. Um, I mean, it was shocking to me because I sort of expected it, but I had one night about a month ago. I had what's called a Charlie horse, and it was because it was cold that happened to be cold that night, and I was kind of curled up in a ball, and my leg, when I stretched it out, I got a Charlie horse. The only time I've had anything like that for the trip, so I'm not getting any cramps at all, or foot pain or anything like that.
That is great. And I've gotten them at times, and they do really, really well with some electrolytes. And actually, Dr. Mimi Guarneri first recommended specific ones. So, Electro pH is a good one. Dr. Berg actually makes a good one. There are different electrolytes you can get. Certainly, those can be helpful. Are you taking any magnesium during this time?
I do. Take magnesium in the evening,
Uh-huh.
and I usually take the magnesium L-theorate,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I take potassium also, potassium and magnesium. That might be why I'm not getting any
Yeah.
cramps. I don't know. I
Fantastic.
don't really know.
All right. Stuart is saying, what are you doing to treat the short-term memory loss?
Well, luckily, I don't experience any of that now.
Yeah.
But when I started out with you 13 and a half years ago, I was patient zero. So we were experimenting a little bit with
Yeah.
supplements. But I found really helpful was the ashwagandha, the citicoline,
Yeah.
the turmeric. Those were all really boosted a lot, as well as whole coffee fruit extract. I
Yeah.
think that's a very helpful thing. And GABA, I mean, there are a number of supplements that specifically will help the short-term memory. That
Yeah.
Bacopa is another
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And some of these are Ayurvedic. They've been around for maybe 1,000 years. I don't know, at least hundreds
Thousands.
and hundreds of years, used
Thousands. Yeah.
extensively around the world, but especially in India. And that really made a difference. And I continue to take those because if it's working, why would I complain? It's like it's working well, and I'm not experiencing that. So
Yep.
I recommend trying those.
Yeah. There's a question here of anonymous attendee. What roles do botanicals and herbal medicine play in increasing the probabilities of reversals of cognitive decline and cognitive issues? And I would start by saying, we've had thousands of people go on this now from all over the world, trained over 2,000 physicians in 10 different countries and all over the US. We're finishing now our second trial. And one thing that we see again and again and again, what works the best and what works the least. And I have to say, the common thing that is missed is the way to get the best outcomes is you look to see first, before you start saying it's this that helps or this that helps or that helps, you look to see what's causing the problem. Is this a lot of inflammation? Are there specific hormone deficiencies? Are there toxin exposures? Are there other problems with gut healing or with sleep apnea or with changes in the oral microbiome or with chronic sinusitis and on and on and on. So you look at these, and having well-trained physicians and health coaches and teams that will look at these and then address those. And then when you address them, doing the basics, the diet, exercise, sleep, stress, brain training, detox, and some targeted supplements, the so-called basic 7, and then looking at, are there specific toxins? Are there specific infections? It's different for each person. Some people, it's really critical to treat sleep apnea. Other people, it's really critical to treat hormone insufficiency. Other people, it's really critical to treat a leaky gut, and just on and on. So that's what has worked best. And there's no question there's a role for botanicals and herbals, as you mentioned, Judy, things like bacopa, ashwagandha, even rhodiola, curcumin. These all can be very, very helpful when used at the right time for the right person. But the key for best outcomes is find out what the problem is, because there are things, it's typically multiple contributors. And, I've been so impressed, your group of survivors that are continuing in the support group are very similar one to the other. They're all get it done people. Like, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this and get better. And it's really been exciting. Your Alzheimer's Survivors Foundation, I think, has a huge role to play, because they're out there telling the world, look at us. As Lucy says, we exist. And I think that's such a good point, because we hear the denial of the existence of those sorts of people. Do you have favorite botanicals or favorite Ayurvedic herbs that you have liked?
Well, I think it's the ones I mentioned earlier, are the ones that the steady ones that I continue to use. And I will say, and I don't know, people could probably deny this is true, but when I first started on protocol, I not only had memory issues, but had such arthritis in my knees and in my hands, and my bedroom was upstairs in my house. And every evening and every morning when I'd go downstairs, I'd have to sidestep. I couldn't bend my knees without having tremendous pain. And when I changed my diet and went on the supplements, I mean, I know it sounds like an ad here for supplements. I don't
Yeah.
mean for it to be like that, but I'm just saying that all of the anti-inflammatories, I believe for me, and I say that for myself, that my arthritis was inflammatory.
Yeah.
And you can see from my hands, because my knuckles and everything are swollen,
Yeah.
because I had it for years. I don't have any pain in them now. I have no pain in my knees. Obviously, I mean, I'm walking across the country.
Yeah.
If I did, I wouldn't be able to do it. And I really think getting rid of the inflammation is really important. But I mean, what you said is so important, that people need to find out. They need to get tested. And the other thing that I like to tell people is, what works for me might not work for somebody else. And
Right.
also, if a person has issues with not, like, in other words, some supplements can act like medicine, and they could be blood thinners. And if you've had heart problems or heart issues, and even some survivors of cancer, you really have to discuss with your doctor what supplements are going to be best for you, because it's not the same for everyone.
Exactly.
I think that there are some standby things like the Bacopa and so forth, but you really need to check it out.
Yeah. And for some people, it'll be, huperzine A, and for some people, it'll be SPM, these sorts of anti-inflammatories. Again, the armamentarium is massive, and it's growing with things like plasmapheresis and stem cells. And there's a wonderful new column coming out for plasmapheresis called MTX 100s, coming from London. I think it should be here in the spring. I think it's very exciting, because it will allow you to do plasma cleaning, basically, instead of actually removing your plasma. So I think there's some advantages to that. So again and again and again, we're hearing new things and things that can be very, very helpful. And there's one here, question on the difference in range of benefits, fish oil versus algal oils. So in general, algae will make the DHA, but not the EPA. I kind of like the combination myself of some krill oil because of the phospholipid in the krill oil, along with some fish oil and typically a gram of DHA. But I like the combination of DHA and EPA because the DHA is very important as the longer chain. It is actually important for construction of synapses, and that's been well proven by Dr. Wortman from MIT over the years. And on the other hand, the EPA is very good for inflammation, vascular, that sort of thing. I mean, it's intriguing to me that you had arthritis. Virtually nobody with active arthritis is going to be walking from Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean. So clearly you've done an exceedingly good job of dealing with the arthritis that you had formerly, which is fantastic to see. So in any case, I like that combination of fish oil with about a gram of DHA total and about half of that of EPA, half that much EPA, and then some krill oil for the phospholipid content. Also like, as I mentioned, resolvins, very, very good for resolving inflammation. There's one here from Michael. It says, could Judy share what things she's been tracking actively throughout the course of her journey, be it HRV, blood sugar, anything wearable or non-wearable related?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, I was just thinking, I hadn't mentioned it yet, but I do believe in wearables. I think that it's really important for you to be able to monitor and know what's going on. So I have an Aura ring, which I've had actually for several years. When they first came out, I got mine,
Yeah.
and then I updated with the newer generation. And I will say that amazingly on this journey, that my sleep numbers have been great. My HRV has been higher, and I
Yeah.
don't know, I can't explain it. It's been higher on the road than it was at home. And I'm 81 years old, so sometimes the age factor, older people's HRV often is lower
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
but than a young person, so it's not, comparable necessarily. But my resiliency, my stress level, and I can point out, and then I get reports on the Aura Ring of congratulations. I get crowns all the time where I'm getting a great sleep and keeping the stress level down. And it's stressful actually to face traffic and watch where you step your foot so you don't step on a piece of glass, or so there's a lot of stress in my day-to-day walking that maybe people wouldn't be aware of, but it doesn't seem to be affecting my numbers. So I do that, and I also have an iWatch, but I tend to favor the Aura Ring because I like to see that and see what my heart rate. Now, my heart rate, I cycle a lot, and I used to do the century rides, 100-mile rides, and I had a heart rate monitor belt around my
Mm.
chest strap, and a watch. And I remember the first time I had that, and I was riding, and it started beeping, and I kept thinking, what is going on? What's that beeping? And it was because my heart rate was going really, really high. But I watch it. So because I know that I have a tendency for my heart to beat fast, I
Yeah.
just watch it I watch that on the watch. The watch is very good for that.
Yeah.
As I'm walking, and if I'm walking uphill and it's really hot, and I'll slow down a little bit just so that I can make sure I'm modulating that and I'm keeping it at a very comfortable pace. I'm not on a race, I'm on a walk. So I'm purposely being gentle with myself so that I don't have any problems,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right, then there's one from Shar, and shout out to Shar. Good to hear from her. How long did it take for you to get rid of the mold with well call?
Oh, gee. I think mold is such an important part of getting a healthy brain, getting rid of mold. And it's everywhere, it's all around us. So I would say I've had a number of encounters with mold, and it really depends on how the remediation is done and where you're exposed to mold. From my time when I first came to Dr. Bredesen, it was because my basement had flooded a few times, and I didn't pay that much attention to it because I didn't see any mold on the upstairs of my house. But I did go down frequently to do the laundry in my basement, and when I had it tested, there was a high level of mold, and I had to get it remediated and with a professional. I had it tested professionally, and then I had the remediation. And then you have to be out of that premises. You don't want to be around when they're taking down walls or anything. And then I came back in. So it took me, and I did a detox using charcoal and clay and other forms of the detox program. So I've done detoxing maybe 4 or 5 times. So if I get exposed again, like when I was working overseas, sometimes I'd be in a situation where there'd be a lot of mold, and I come back home and I have to take a mold test again to see a mycotox test, a urine test to see
Yeah,
whether I have it again. And in
yeah,
fact, when I get home after my walk, I'm going to order another test
yeah.
and look at it, because when I'm not sleeping in the RV, I know I don't have any mold in my RV.
Good.
But sometimes, like tonight, I'm in a hotel. And it's a new hotel, so it looks pretty good and smell. I always do the sniff test.
Yep.
I don't smell anything, but I want to check it when I get home. So I would say to you, get rid of the source of the mold. Find out where the mold's coming from. Get out of that place. If you can't remediate, it's better to move than it is to try to stay. It's just not worth it, because I have clients in my coaching business. They will say, we lived in this house for 35 years. We can't move now. We're too old. Well, you know what? It's worth it to have your brain healthy. It really is worth it to get to a place where you don't have any mold. And I know that's a bitter pill to swallow, but it is so, so important to not be exposed to mold.
Yeah, it's such a common contributor. All right, next one here is what can those of older age do to increase the amount of mitochondria other than exercise and urolithin A? And other than exercise and urolithin A, what sorts of things can we do to make the relatively lower amount of mitochondria act more efficiently? Oh my gosh, yeah, so much to do. And as you mentioned, you're 81, I'm in my mid 70s, so we're both dealing with these sorts of issues. And there are many things. So one of the things would be PQQ. 10 or 20 milligrams a day. PQQ is a good one and is shown to increase mitochondrial number. Of course, cold plunges. That's what cold plunges are all about. Take it easy the first couple of times. Don't hurt your heart. But getting cooled down, some ice baths, those sorts of things, those essentially the so-called Wim Hof approach. Is another good way to go to increase that. And then there's actually a company called Mitrix that is looking at mitochondrial transfusions. These are not yet generally available, but they've been reported from a couple places in the Northeast. It's coming, and basically what will happen is we will get younger mitochondria into those of us with older adults. Initially, the plan from Mitrix is to use, as I understand it, is going to be to use platelet mitochondria from platelets that have been donated. So I think that's another possibility. And then, of course, all sorts of things that we can do to support the mitochondria we do have, from simple things like vitamins, and then things like CoQ. You mentioned urolithin A. Even just having enough of appropriate magnesium and things like that. All those sorts of things can be helpful. Of course, nicotinamide riboside, nicotinamide mononucleotide, and niacinamide, all these sorts of things can be very helpful for those that you do have. People also like things like methylene blue. So there are lots of things to be done. Of course, whole courses, whole books on how to support mitochondria and how to increase. And there's no question that is an important one going forward. People have been interested in, what are the rate limiting things as we age? And one of them, of course, is immunosenescence. And Dr. Jeff Bland has done a lot of work over the last years on Himalayan tartary buckwheat, HTB, which prevents immunosenescence or reduces immunosenescence. That is a key issue as we age. Mitochondrial function, another big one. Inflammation, so-called inflammaging, another big one. So we're all looking at what are the things that we can do to improve. And that this is, I wrote about this in The Ageless Brain. How do we make our brain spans as long as our lifespans? We don't want to have a 90-year lifespan, but a brain that only works for 70 years. That is unfortunately a common problem and a really difficult one for so many of us. So we want to get rid of that. We want to make sure that we don't develop cognitive decline. Judy, any special things that you do to make sure that your mitochondria are functioning well?
Well, I mean, I love this topic because I came around to the idea early on that mitochondria is a unit of analysis of health. I mean, they're the
Yeah,
organelles in every cell,
yeah,
almost every cell in the body, especially in the brain. So I thought I want my mind to be really robust and be really strong. So I really pay a lot of attention to the literature on building up mitochondria, but I also with exercise, and I do a daily sauna when I'm at home. I take a sauna, and I think sauna bathing, especially the infrared and near infrared saunas, are, reputed to be healthy for mitochondria, as well as the cold. I don't do the ice baths because I'm basically a chicken, but I do take a cold shower. One arm
yeah,
in, one arm in, and then finally I get in all the way.
yeah.
I've never liked cold plunges, but I know it's good for you. I mean, that hormesis of shock, what is it, protein shock therapy, is it? Just getting that, letting the cells go from one temperature to another temperature is really very healthy. And that's what I do. I do take urolithin A. I've been taking that now for a few years. I think that's great, a great addition. But if you get a lot of exercise, that's going to be helpful as well. And of course, I think a good diet. I mean, I think all of it adds up.
And if you don't like the cold plunges, there are also where you don't get into water, you just get into a cold, essentially a freezer, for a short period of time and get out. I know Dr. Darshan Shah at Next Health has this available as well. So you can do the plunges, or you can also go into a freezer, and for some period of time where it's very cold. And again, something that kind of stimulates this thermogenesis and stimulates you to increase your mitochondrial function and your mitochondrial number. So there's a lot to be done. All right, here, let's see here. Stay active. Let's see what this one is. How do you know how much electrolytes, salts, or minerals and multivitamins to take for the level of exercise you do? Is there a rule of thumb for people who wish to stay active every day, especially at older age? And how have you decided how much of the various supplements and electrolytes to take on your trip?
Well, I don't have a formula for it scientifically. What I do is I just try to make sure that give those scoops to my two water vessels that I take out, and then I'll try to remember to do it again. So I would say that I'm scooping out on the electrolytes probably 4 or 5 scoops, the measured scoops. I'm not sure, it's probably a teaspoon of the
Mhm.
powder, and I would think that it varies from product to product, but this is the one by UCAN. And I asked the founder uh, about it, how much, and he said you could take it as much as you want to, really. But I think for me, it's just to remember to take it kind of thing. But I try to make sure that my water has electrolyte added to it.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And do you have a sense of how much sodium? I mean, when thinking, have you looked into how much sodium you're taking in each day? And certainly that is going to increase when you're outdoors. The great news, when you're outdoors, you're away from the main sources of mycotoxins and things like that. But of course, and you're going to get some great vitamin D, no question about that. But in terms of sweating and losing volume, losing sodium, things like that, do you have a sense of how much sodium you're taking in each day?
I know that I'm taking a lot more than I did when I was at home before doing the walk, because your body kind of craves it sometimes when you don't get enough of it. And honestly, it's when I was going through, most of my walk has been in very hot weather, and I've been sweating just a tremendous amount. And even in the clothing that I wear, you can just see the salt lines around, that's coming out. So I just really try to add a lot of salt to my food to compensate. I'm not measuring it. And one thing I kind of regret from the start that I didn't have a more of a scientific way of measuring these things, but I go by what I'm sort of craving saltier taste than I would normally. So I just
Hmm.
liberally use the salt. And I will say that what I've learned also is that the old Morton's table salt with iodine in it is a better choice than some of the fancier Himalayan salt because that doesn't have the minerals in it that we need, and iodine in particular. So I just use the regular old salt and sprinkle it on everything, and
Yeah.
it seems to be working.
Yeah, so it's interesting, most of us who are eating a standard American diet are going to be low in iodine, as you mentioned, magnesium, zinc, choline, and many in potassium as well. So it's critical to get those five, and especially, for memory, you want to make sure to have enough choline, somewhere around 550 milligrams of choline a day. And if you look at, for example, a chronometer and follow your diet, most Americans in their diet are getting about 350. So most of us are light in the choline. And in fact, cognitive decline is associated with a reduction in acetylcholine, which requires that choline. So for most of us, we should be getting some additional choline, which you can take as citicoline, you can take it as alpha GPC, you can take it as things like eggs or liver or things like that that will give you additional choline. So, most of us are light on that. When it comes to things like minerals, you want to somewhere around, most people will look at somewhere around 500 milligrams of magnesium. Many of them will look also similarly around 500 milligrams of potassium. But the best thing to do is follow yourself, And if you're getting cramps, let's find out why. Are you low in sodium? Are you low in potassium? Are you low in calcium? That's another thing that can give you cramps. So any of those sorts of things. So following along is probably the best way to do it.
Mhm.
Next one
Yep.
here is from Michael, who's saying, what about autoimmunity affecting the brain? This is a timely question. An article just came out on ALS a few days ago, arguing that ALS has an autoimmune component. The question is that an effect or is that a cause? What's interesting, in general, we think in terms of autoimmunity as being kind of phase two. The innate immune system is the earlier part where you have inflammation. This is why this series that we mentioned earlier, high neutrophils, high monocytes, you've got an inflammatory component. And for many people with cognitive decline, their adaptive system is not working particularly well, whereas their innate system is very much what you see, by the way, in COVID. Not enough of the adaptive system to clear the problem, but too much activation of the innate system. Now, for some people, though, just as Michael says here, they'll go on to actually activate their adaptive system. Now, when they activate it, it can be activated so that it does have what it should have, which is you're just responding to the pathogen. But for many people, unfortunately, you do get some autoimmunity. And that can increase if you don't have the right support for the adaptive system, such as zinc, magnesium, things like that. So we want to get an optimal response. There is a nice test from Cyrex called lymphocyte subsets test, which can look to see whether you have lymphocyte exhaustion, whether you have autoimmunity, things like that. This can be very helpful. And treating it, yes, when we do see it, there are a number of things you can do. For example, LDN, low dose naltrexone, has worked very well for many people who have some degree of autoimmunity. People, even for significant autoimmunity, even do things like plasmapheresis. I mentioned earlier this new column that they think is going to be very interesting as well. So there are all sorts of ways to get at autoimmunity if you do identify it. But as I mentioned, often we'll see that people with cognitive decline, it hasn't gone all the way to the adaptive system. You're really stuck in that inflammatory piece, and you want to be able to resolve that. It sounds like you're doing very well because you've had no more arthritis on this trip, which is really nice to hear.
Yeah, I haven't had it for years actually, so I'm
Yeah.
very happy about that. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then someone's saying here, which herbs do you attribute the lack of pain for your arthritis? What were you starting when you first got rid of your arthritis? You talked about that a little bit earlier.
I think the curcumin, the turmeric, I was using that quite, that was the thing that really was different from what I had done before, because before I started on your protocol, I wasn't taking any of those supplements at all. I mean, nothing. And I had a very poor diet. I think the shift to healthy food, real food, and then taking I really think the anti-inflammatory supplements is what turned it around because I basically, and it didn't happen overnight. I mean, basically, I took away the inflammation in my body through the process of the protocol.
Yep.
That's basically what I did.
Yep. Great. So one here from Tony is saying, what do you think of plasmalogens? So I like them. The key, this is of course from Dr. Dan Goodnow, who's done some very nice work with this, and we've had interviewed him and talked to him before. The key is check to see if your plasmalogens are low or normal. If they are low, which they often are with cognitive decline, then absolutely supplementing with some plasmalogens, a good idea. If they're not low, then of course you don't need to do it. So again, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier. Find out what's driving the problem. It's often multiple things. Address those things. I know we're running out of time here. Dennis is saying, what's good prevention for urinary tract bacteria? I will say before I answer that I'm a neurologist, not a urologist. However, try some D-mannose. D-mannose is what everybody uses to prevent urinary tract infections, and it works very well for many, many people. So I would check into that.
Yeah, I use that too. I think I use
Yeah,
that and also a cranberry
yeah,
extract for cranberry juice along with the Demanus. I think that
yeah,
I did have a couple of instances of urinary tract infection on the trip, and I got the advice to take that and did, and no problem since then.
yeah. So, okay, final words. We look forward to seeing you in St. Augustine area on November 15th. Congratulations again. You have 2,600 miles. Oh my gosh. You've had millions of steps. It's just a huge, huge accomplishment. So thank you for the inspiration you're providing for so many of us. Any final words you'd like to say before you get to St. Augustine?
Just keep moving, one step at a time. No matter what you do, just don't sit around. You got to keep moving and you'll feel better mentally and physically. So that's what I say. Just keep on moving and keep supporting. I mean, really, I love the fact that people are on the Instagram and on a TikTok and YouTube. I mean, we really need your support, and it encourages me so much. I haven't had time to respond to everybody, but I'm hoping that I will be able to go back and do that when I get home. So
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bredesen, for all that you've done for me and for so many others.
Thank you very much, Judy. Yes, such a time of great progress. And so I would encourage everyone, please, if you're over 35, please get on active prevention or earliest treatment. If you are struggling with your memory or struggling with cognition for any reason, please get evaluated. Please don't wait. Please don't let your doctor tell you it's just normal aging. Get checked out. Now there are these wonderful blood tests for p-tau 217 and GFAP that can really tell you, is this an issue or not? You can see things coming early, and there's so much we can all do. So, all right, we will sign off here because I see the hour is up. But I look forward to seeing you in St. Augustine. Please be safe for the rest of your walk, okay?
Thank you so much. Thank
All right,
you.
fantastic. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.